The message arrived at exactly 8:17 on a Tuesday morning. I almost ignored it. My mother rarely texted first. When she did, it was usually to remind me about a birthday, a family dinner, or an anniversary I had forgotten. Instead, I opened the message and felt my heart sink. "It's best if you don't come to your sister's wedding." I stared at the screen, convinced I had misunderstood. A second message appeared. "It will only create unnecessary tension." Then came the final one. "Please don't make this harder than it already is." 3 short messages. No explanation. No apology. No phone call. Just a decision that erased my place in the most important day of my sister's life. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 34 years old, a pediatric nurse, and according to my own mother, I was no longer welcome at my little sister's wedding. The painful truth was that this wasn't the first time I had been asked to sacrifice something for Sophie. Growing up, everyone described us as opposites. Sophie was outgoing, charming, and effortlessly popular. She could walk into a room full of strangers and leave with 10 new friends. I was quieter. I preferred books over parties, meaningful conversations over small talk, and helping people instead of being the center of attention. Our parents adored us both, but not equally. Whenever there was a choice to make, it almost always favored Sophie. If she wanted the larger bedroom because it had better sunlight, I was asked to switch. "You're more understanding," Mom would say. When she forgot a school project, I drove across town to deliver it. When she borrowed my clothes without asking and accidentally ruined them, I was told not to overreact. "She's younger. Be the bigger person." Those words followed me throughout childhood. Be the bigger person. At first, I believed that was simply what older sisters did. I convinced myself that love meant giving without expecting anything back. When Sophie received a scholarship to an expensive university, but still couldn't afford housing, I postponed buying my own condo and loaned her nearly all my savings. She hugged me tightly. "I'll pay you back." She never did. I never reminded her. Not because I forgot, because I didn't want money to damage our relationship. After graduation, our lives moved in different directions. I became a pediatric nurse at a busy children's hospital. The work was exhausting. Night shifts, emergency calls, long weekends. But every time I helped comfort a frightened child or watched a patient recover, I remembered why I had chosen this career. Sophie became an event planner. Within a few years, she was organizing luxury weddings and corporate celebrations for wealthy clients. Her social media was filled with glamorous venues, designer dresses, tropical vacations, and smiling celebrities. I was genuinely happy for her. Whenever someone complimented her success, I smiled proudly. "She's worked incredibly hard." I meant every word. When Sophie announced her engagement to Ethan, I cried with happiness. Ethan was thoughtful, respectful, and surprisingly down-to-earth despite his successful career. He treated Sophie with kindness. Most importantly, he treated our family with respect. During their engagement dinner, he quietly pulled me aside. "You've always looked out for Sophie. Thank you." Those simple words meant more than he probably realized. Wedding planning quickly became Sophie's entire world. She called me almost every evening. "What do you think of these flowers? Which invitation design looks better? Should the bridesmaids wear blue or green?" I happily answered every question. One Saturday, we visited 5 different bakeries, tasting wedding. My mother's words echoed in my mind throughout the flight. "It's best if you don't come." Every mile the airplane traveled gave me another chance to turn back. Every announcement from the captain reminded me that I could still change my mind. I almost did. More than once. But every time I reached for my phone to cancel the hotel reservation, I remembered 8-year-old Sophie holding my hand on her first day of school. Back then she had cried because she was afraid. I promised I would always be there for her. Promises like that don't disappear simply because life becomes complicated. When my plane landed, I rented a small car and drove toward the vineyard where the wedding would take place the following afternoon. The town looked exactly as I remembered. The little bookstore where Mom used to buy birthday cards. The ice cream shop Dad took us to every Friday. The church where Sophie and I sang in the children's choir. Everything seemed frozen in time. Everything except our family. I checked into a small hotel about 15 minutes from the venue. That evening I sat alone on the balcony, watching the sunset and wondering whether I had made a terrible mistake. Around 9 o'clock, my phone rang. It was Ethan, Sophie's fiancé. I hesitated before answering. "Hello." His voice sounded confused. "Claire, where are you?" I paused. "I'm in town." There was complete silence. You're here? Yes. Another pause. Finally, he asked the question that changed everything. Why haven't you come to the rehearsal dinner? I frowned. I wasn't invited. What? Mom told me not to come. He sounded genuinely shocked. Who told you that? My mother. And Sophie. She stopped answering my calls. There was another long silence. Then Ethan quietly said, Claire, Sophie has been crying for 2 days because she thinks you chose not to come. I felt my heart stop. What are you talking about? She told everyone you said you were too busy. I stood up so quickly the chair behind me nearly fell over. No, I never said that. Ethan took a slow breath. I think you need to come tomorrow. Before hanging up, he added, there's something very wrong. I barely slept that night. The next afternoon, I drove to the vineyard but parked far from the main entrance. I wasn't there to interrupt the ceremony. I simply wanted answers. As guests began arriving, I noticed something unusual. Several relatives looked surprised to see me. Not angry. Surprised. My aunt hurried toward me. Claire, we thought you canceled. I stared at her. Canceled? Your mother told everyone you didn't want to attend because weddings were too painful after your divorce. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I never said that. Before my aunt could answer, Sophie suddenly appeared from inside the bridal suite. The moment she saw me, she froze. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then she lifted her wedding dress and ran across the lawn. She threw her arms around me, crying so hard she could barely speak. You came. I thought you didn't want me here. I hugged her tightly. I thought you didn't want me. She stepped back, completely confused. What? I showed her the text messages. She stared at the screen. Her face turned completely white. I never asked Mom to send these. You didn't. She shook her head. I've been calling you for days. I thought you were ignoring me. I opened my phone and showed her my call history. Dozens of unanswered calls. Messages that had never received replies. Sophie pulled out her own phone. None of my messages were there. None of her messages were on mine. Someone had blocked our numbers from each other's phones after borrowing them during wedding preparations. We looked at each other in disbelief. Only one person had access to both our phones. Mom. At that moment, our mother walked out of the reception hall. The smile on her face disappeared the instant she saw us standing together. Neither of us spoke. Mom slowly approached. I can explain. Sophie looked at her with tears in her eyes. Please do. Mom lowered her head. I was trying to protect the wedding. From what? She hesitated. Ethan's parents kept mentioning your divorce. They said guests would gossip. I thought if Claire stayed away, everything would be easier. Sophie couldn't believe what she was hearing. So you lied to both of us? Mom quietly nodded. I thought you'd forgive me afterward. Instead of answering, Sophie reached into her bridal bouquet and removed one white rose. She handed it to me. I asked the florist to make 2 bouquets. I hoped somehow you'd still be here. Tears filled my eyes. She smiled through her own tears. You're not missing my wedding. You never were. Minutes later, the ceremony began. Instead of sitting quietly among the guests, Sophie stopped halfway down the aisle. She turned toward everyone. I need 1 minute. The entire vineyard became silent. She looked directly at the crowd. My sister has always stood beside me. When we were children. When I started my career. When my life fell apart. If she isn't welcome, then neither am I. She walked back toward me, took my hand, and led me to the front row herself. No one objected. Not even Ethan's parents. After the ceremony, my mother privately apologized. Not with excuses. Not with explanations. Simply with honesty. I spent so many years trying to keep everyone happy that I forgot the people who mattered most. I hugged her. Healing wasn't instant. Trust rarely returns overnight. But it was a beginning. Months later, while looking through the wedding album, Sophie laughed. You know what's funny? What? The picture everyone loves most isn't the first kiss. It isn't the first dance. It's the moment I ran across the lawn to hug my big sister. Looking back, people often ask why I boarded that plane after being told not to come. The answer is simple. If I had stayed home, I would have spent the rest of my life believing my sister had chosen to erase me from her happiest day. Instead, I discovered the truth. Misunderstandings can separate families. Fear can make people make terrible decisions. But honest conversations can heal wounds that silence only makes deeper. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't staying away when you're told you're unwanted. Sometimes it's showing up with an open heart, giving the people you love one chance to tell you the truth before you walk away forever.